So I wanted to share a little bit of knowledge that I've learned over the last 20 plus years of both being a writer and also coaching other writers to write books, magazine articles, and all sorts of other things. And one of the things that I've learned is that most people think that they can just sit down and write a book and it just should automatically happen, and then they get mad at themselves when it doesn't happen as quickly as they want it to. But what they are not realizing is that good quality, strong books are built from skills that you get to practice in public. What that means is that magazine writing is actually one of the fastest ways to be able to build that muscle. So if you want to be able to write a book that people actually want to read, if you want to be able to write a book that people actually trust your expertise on, if you want to write a book that people actually are interested in buying and reading, then I want to be able to give you 5 reasons for believing that writing for magazines is the first thing that you should do and will completely change how you show up as an author. Okay, so if you are new here, my name is Lana Black. I support women writers who are interested in learning how to be more authoritative in their writing, in their voice, in the way that they speak, um, through the act of writing. If you want to learn more, you can go to the link in my description box, um, to the Linktree link, and you can find supportive information about what it is that I provide there. But let's get back to this particular video. Magazine writing forces you to actually clarify your point of view. Um, Magazines actually force you to clarify your point of view. Um, Magazines don't want people to write articles who have vague ideas, VAGUE. They don't want people who have vague ideas. They need you to be crystal clear on what it is that you are writing. And so this the practice of pitching magazine articles actually helps you to clarify what it is that you want to say. You can think about your magazine article as a mini version of the books, or at least the points in the books that you would like to be able to make. Um, and so it's forcing you to get clear on one, your audience, and who it is that you want to be able to share it with, and who it is that and what it is that you actually want to say to this particular audience. You learn how to be able to take a strong position and not just tell a story. So, a lot of people, they want to be able to tell their backstory of, where they come from. Maybe they have a story about, the things that they've survived in their childhood, the things that went wrong in their career, health problems they may have had. But it's not just the story that you're telling, but it's also what is the position that you are taking on when you tell these experiences. Are you trying to um, help improve the medical system, for women, as an example? Um, are you taking a strong stand on immigration? Um, are you there's a million things that you can take a position on, but can you actually specify that for an audience? And I find that writing magazine articles is a wonderful way for you to be able to practice that well before you actually jump into the process of writing a book. So editors of magazines, they're interested in wanting to know, why are you writing this about this particular topic? Why is this relevant right now? And why are you the perfect person to be able to tell it? And what you find that you do when you're writing magazine articles, you're doing this every time you pitch a new article. Every time you pitch a new article, and once your article is accepted, you actually get into the practice of sharing your point in different ways, in ways that actually fit the magazine, in ways that fit that particular audience. So those things are really good to know. Um, So, I'll just close point number one with every strong book that I've seen always starts with a clear argument or perspective. It's not just, a bunch of stories about your life. Even if you're writing a memoir, that's important to know because a lot of people want to be able to write personal stories, or they want to be able to write a larger a personal essay, or they want to be able to write a memoir. Even if you're doing that, it's not just a dumping of what it is that you went through. You have to be able to take what it is that you went through and decide what that particular experience means to you and how it is that you would like to be able to translate that meaning for your audience. What do you want them to walk away with? What do you want them to learn from your experience that maybe they did not have before? Okay, so that's point number one. Magazine writing forces you to clarify your point of view. Point number two, you learn to write for a specific reader and not just your journal, your personal journal. So journaling is a private practice. I love journaling. I've been keeping a journal for years. But the practice of journaling is often very different from the practice of journaling is very different from the practice of writing for books or even for magazine articles. And so you take a lot of things for granted, like like how it is a particular audience is going, how someone else is going to be able to react to what it is that you have to say when you write it down. That's important to know. And every time you write an article, you get a practice of getting feedback from people who have read the article. People won't find, they'll find you. They're going to be able to get in contact with you. Like, for example, I just published an article with Business Insider, and I talk about, my experience of learning how to be able to go food shopping in Mexico and how it differs from what I used to do when I lived in the States 7 years ago. And, I didn't even know that they even published a thing because in the past, Business Insider has taken so much weeks, sometimes months, to be able to publish the story that I turned in. But this time it only took a few weeks. I didn't even know that they had published it. It's some a stranger who had found it and who was familiar with me from another speaking engagement I had done with Exodus Summit. They sent me an email saying, "Hey, found this article, loved it, very motivational," and she herself was actually interested in being a freelance writer at some point, which is wonderful to know that people in my audience are actually interested in doing the same thing that I do. I'm a part of what I do is a freelance writer. Much more of what I'm doing now is more about being able to support other writers who want to be able to put their writing into the world. So it's not just the freelance writing, it's also coaching people to be able to write larger things like books in support of their business. So I say all this to say that journaling is a private practice. Journaling is what it is that you do for yourself. And so, rightfully so, you only have one person to be able to answer to in your journaling. You only need to be honest for yourself. However, you know that when you communicate, if you are a person who is married, or if you've been in a relationship of any kind, it could be a romantic relationship, it could be a friendship, it could be a relationship that you have with your children. The way you communicate, the way you understand your experience of something is different when you have to communicate it to somebody else. You have to think about how it is that they are going to be able to react to what it is that you say. So are you saying certain things? Are you saying it in a loving way? Are you saying it in a way that is direct and maybe a little more cutthroat than what you may usually communicate it to be? You have to make those sorts of choices when you are writing a magazine article or even a book. because publishing is a relational process. It's all about learning how to be able to communicate with people who may not be with you when they read it. As a matter of fact, most of the people are not going to be with you when they read it. So it's a process of being able to sit down and think about what it is that you want to say, and think about how it is that they are going to react to what it is that you are writing about, and how it's going to affect, what's the effect that you want to be able to have on what it is when they actually read it. And so, and you're always thinking about magazine editors thinking about um, when you turn in your magazine article, they need to be crystal clear on who is this piece for. That's always sitting in the back of their mind. And so as a result, you as the writer have to think about who is this particular piece for. And this information matters for when you write books, because a book is a conversation with your reader. You know, it's not a therapy session, so it's not all centered on you only. You know, so again, while you're telling, you may include parts of your story, you do have to remember that you do have to think about how other people are going to consume what it is that you've written. And magazine writing is really a wonderful way for you to be able to train your empathetic ear, how to have, how to be more empathetic about how people are absorbing what it is that you've written, how it lands for them on their heart, if that's appropriate to what it is that you're doing. If you are writing something that's a little bit more, I guess, more corporate, like a directive, you know, if you're a person who's a sales trainer, or you're training them, you know, to learn how to do a specific task, it may have less feeling in it. But either way, the information, you need to be tuned into how your words, how the experiences and examples that you are using are landing with your audience. And so if you haven't done that before, or you know, if you are having trouble with the book, I always suggest doing something smaller as a way to begin sharing your message. And that's why I like to teach magazine writing articles, or article writing, as a way to at least get you writing and getting you in front of your people. So your book, just to be able to close that, your book isn't about you, it's more about what the reader is getting from your experience. Let's see, we're on time. Point number 3, you practice finishing work instead of living in draft hell. Sometimes, one of the things that I do is I offer a manuscript review. What a manuscript review is, people who have already started the writing process, or sometimes they feel like they finished it as much as they could on their own, their book on their own, and they bring their book to me, their book draft to me, to say, hey, you know, what do you think? Do I have something here? Oh gosh. And sometimes what I have to, not that what I have to say to them is difficult, but sometimes it's difficult for the person to hear, because they put their whole heart and soul into telling these stories that have just sort of been bubbling, so, you know, in the back of their mind and into their psyche, and they have this idea of being able to tell these particular stories, and they want it to land in a certain way with people. But what it winds up actually being is sometimes 50, 100 plus pages of stream of consciousness. Stream of consciousness meaning they just write as it came out, and it doesn't really have any viable structure to it. It doesn't have any meaning. They're talking to 2, 3 different types of audiences, and it's more confusion than anything else. And the amount of work that it takes to be able to take that work. They've written 100, 200 plus pages, and they're thinking, I'm close to the end. I just need an editor. Somebody can just look at this, fix the grammar, and we're good to go. No, in a lot of those circumstances, we need to just be able to start fresh. And it's not that work that they put into it was a waste, because it wasn't. What it actually did was that it helped them to understand that writing is a multi-layered process. And for them, they needed to be able to get those stories out of their head and onto paper so that they can know what it is that they have to be able to work with. And so they work with me to be able to help them figure out how to find structure in what it is that they want to be able to say. So that's what I offer in a manuscript review. Now, before they even do all of that, pieces of that can be done in writing magazine scripts, in writing magazine articles, because you can take one idea from a book that might have 20 points. You take one idea and you can turn that one idea into 10 different articles for different places. And so training yourself to be able to work, number one, on a deadline. For a lot of the magazines that I write, they tend to be, the digital versions of magazines, and some are print. But when they offer me, when they accept my pitch and they say, okay, we're going to expect the first draft from you in 2 weeks. You can say yes or no if you need to be able to negotiate the deadline. You can also ask for that as well. But just knowing that I have that deadline and looming in the back of my head forces me to say, okay, I need to be able to figure out what it is I'm going to say and what resources I'm going to be able to use as sources or proof of what it is that, or to be able to support what it is that I want to be able to say, the point that I want to be able to make in the article. And I only have 2 weeks to be able to do that, as opposed to some people, they've like, I'm writing this book, I'm working on this project, and it's been 3 years. It's been 3 years. And then they come to me for the manuscript review after the 3 years and 200 pages of stuff that they've written down. And it's humbling to be able to hear from someone else, an outsider, who can read their work and say, you're nowhere near done. As a matter of fact, you just got started. Furthermore, we probably need to start from scratch, and here is what I would suggest that we do. And it's not so much about paying me for the process, it's more about you are paying me to be able to help you think through what it is that's going to best to serve your clients. And for some of you, starting off with magazine articles might be the best thing for you. Also, when you are practicing finishing the work, when you're learning how to be able to write shorter things, shorter magazine articles, you learn how to work under a word count. Particularly in print magazines, they don't have a ton of space for you to be able to write a book. You can't take up half the magazine with your story. You just can't. A lot of them might be 500, 600, maybe 1,000 words at the most. And some of them, you may, if you tend to be more verbose than most, you've got to learn how to cut it down. And just don't give it to an editor to be able to figure out your writing on your own, because they won't work with you again. Magazine editors really just want to work with people who are going to be easy, people who take their feedback into consideration, and are, very easygoing. They love to be able to work with you because you have a very specific point of view, and they're excited about getting your work into the magazine and to be able to share with their readers. But you've also got to do your part to be um, accommodating, and gracious about what it is that you want to be able to share. So, in essence, you learn how to deliver clean work, without the perfectionism. In 2 weeks, there's only, you can't, but you've got all these other responsibilities that you've got to do for your business. So you never really feel like, okay, this piece is absolutely perfect. This is the most perfect piece that I'm going to get. It has to be good enough to a point where it's it feels good. You fulfilled all the things that you said that you wanted to be able to fulfill. It's a helpful article. Hopefully, most articles that we are writing are articles that are going to be helpful to the reader. Um, and that's really what it is that they want to know. So most people fail at writing books, not necessarily because they don't have talent. It's because they just don't know how to finish the product, how to be able to finish the product in the first place. You've got to be able to know how to be able to write on deadline, and how to be able to do it in a more structured way so that you can finish feeling strong. So magazine writing teaches you how to be able to close a thought over and over again. Point number 4. When you're writing for magazines, I'm looking down because I'm looking at my notes. When you're writing for magazines, you actually build public proof of your authority before your book exists. So articles become a kind of social proof, right? So you see them all the time. If you go on LinkedIn, if you go to conferences, and you read people's bios, and you think about, people that you might look up to in your industry, or, people who are excited about what it is, about whatever the thing it is that you are interested in. It doesn't matter if it's a big sales and marketing conference, or if it's something that's more interest based, like, a conference for bakers, people who bake cakes and things like that. When you hear that someone has written for, I don't know, Food and Wine magazine, or if someone is writing for something like a Forbes magazine, they have an ongoing column in Forbes magazine, that makes your ears perk up. That makes you say, okay, well, all right, well, this person, has some authority that I should pay attention to. It makes people feel comfortable that these outlets that like, and trust, they show up every week, every month, sometimes every day, either in your email inbox. You might see it on social media every day. You yourself may be a subscriber to some of these magazines, whether it's digital or print. And so because they've written for these larger outlets, you in turn you as a writer are in turn able to borrow some of the trust that they've taken from that larger outlet for yourself. I hope that makes sense. If you think about it, like, for example, I'm a Black woman, obviously. All the Black women in my family, if they don't read Essence, they are at least familiar with Essence magazine, right? So I've been saying that I'm a writer for 20 years. But, until I've written for Essence, they didn't know what the hell. they didn't know what the hell I was doing. I've been doing. But because I've written for Essence magazine. I have a couple of articles that I did. I want to say last summer is when they were published. Um, they're like, wow, they're like, Halan is the writer in the family. I'm like, I've been the writer. I've been writing for 20 years. This is not, a habit that I've just picked up in the last couple of years or so. And so, in their eyes, because I have written for a place that they know, love, and respect across generations, I get to borrow some of that social proof for myself. And also, it's not just, for your family members or even for your clients, but it also shows other people, like other editors. If you want to traditionally publish your book, you might be looking for an agent. Um, Other people who are readers for the book that you want to be able to write. If you're a person who is looking for speaking engagements, um, that helps them to understand that they can trust what it is that you say. Um, your ideas land for a certain group of people. That's important. Um, and you're not just asking people to trust you, because your suit looks good that day. You're asking them, you don't even have to make the ask. They trust you because this other organization that they already have high respect for they trust that. And so now they trust you as a result. Um, and so books are easier to sell when your ideas have already circulated somewhere. Um, it's weird how people find you, especially on social media. So I explained earlier that the new article that was just published about my experience of food shopping in Mexico for Business Insider. I didn't even know they published a thing. It was someone else that I had never even met. But she knew me from a speaking engagement that I had done with Exodus Summit. If you're familiar with Exodus Summit, it's a yearly online conference where they do with a few thousand Black women online who are interested in learning how to be able to move abroad. And because I've been abroad since 2018 and I am a Black woman, this last year in particular, I did a speaking engagement on showing people how they can actually learn how to be able to use freelance writing, or more specifically, pitching magazines as part of your income for when you move abroad. Because I think the overall theme for the event was making move abroad money. And so I got to be able to share that with the ladies of Exodus Summit, which was so much fun. And so a lot of the women, and even some of the women who respond to the videos that I post, they actually show up in the comments to say, hey, I'm from Exodus Summit, and I remember you, which is always nice. Exodus Summit has such a large amount of trust that they have built with the ladies who are connected to their community. And so because so many women trust Exodus Summit, and Exodus Summit has brought me onto their platform to be able to share with their community members, as a result, don't need to ask me 10 million questions. When I said that I have a course that I want to be able to share with the world, it was mostly women from Exodus Summit who invested and continue to invest. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that level of trust. And so that's what you're doing when you write for magazines that other people know about. So your book is easier to sell when your ideas are already circulating in the world. And publishers really love authors who've already tested their ideas. It's one thing to be able to say, look at my blog. Um, it's got a few hundred readers, maybe. Not to say that you can't get an agent to look at your work if you just have a blog and you're not really sure how many people are actually reading it. But you don't have a lot to say when you're able to say that I have written about this, whatever your topic is for your book. You can say I've written about this topic in X, Y, and Z magazines that they already know about, and they're able to say, this article has circulated across how many hundreds, thousands, even millions of views sometimes. And to be able to share that with a publisher or even an agent. An agent helps you to figure out. An agent actually takes your work and it shops it around to different publishers to help you find the best publishing deal. So you don't necessarily have to go into a meeting with an agent with nothing. You're able to say to them, this is my work. This is my life's work. And these are the outlets where people are already trusting what it is that I say. So in essence, every article you write is always going to be a receipt, so to speak. We talk about how we like to be able to show receipts of what it is that you know, or proof that you know what you know. We want to be able to show that we can deliver what it is that we can deliver on. And so writing for magazines is a strategic way to be able to do it. And point number five, it's good for you. Magazine writing is a good way for you to be able to discover what your book is actually about. How do I say this? When people come to me and they have a book idea, many people have a general idea, but they haven't really done the deeper thinking to figure out, all right, I'm saying that I want to write a book about I don't know, what's something that someone has recently come to me about. Someone who wants to be able to write about their working as a therapist, working with people of color. And they have a certain way that they want to be able to frame their work. Well, a lot of the people that they work with, it's not like they can go around talking about the work that they do individually with their people, with their clients, because, that information is private, of course. However, you can use articles to talk about your frameworks, maybe to talk about how it is that you criticize frameworks that other people have used to be able to work with people of color. All sorts of things. You can sort of use article writing as a way to be able to reveal patterns in how it is that you are thinking about what it is that you've seen, what it is that you are experiencing with your clients without actually naming your clients. And so you figure out more in the writing process and thinking through your articles. You know that you have a general interest in what therapy looks like in your world for people of color. But writing these articles actually helps you to sit down and say, okay, this is my general idea, but this is my actual framework. This is the problem of what is being used in therapeutic sessions that I don't particularly care for. And this is why. And this is what I think we should do to be able to change it. This is something that would be a lot more useful. Um, and you get to see what people respond to. If editors like it, that's a plus. Once the editor likes it, and they publish it, you get to know how readers are responding to it. Are readers saying, you know what, I've had therapy experiences, didn't like it. I agree that, people of color need a different way of participating in therapy sessions. They need a different way to be able to go to, I don't know, let's say an ayahuasca session, or adding ayahuasca to your therapeutic session is useful for people of color for this reason. And only using talk therapy only wouldn't necessarily work for this particular group of people. And so what happens is that your book starts to be able to emerge from the patterns that you see in the process of writing these articles and sharing them with people, because over time you're going to see the same people or the same types of people say the same thing over and over again, and all of that is information that you collect over time. So these books become distilled from years of you thinking through what it is that you've done, and not just rushed stuff that you just throw out there. Because your book, especially if you're a person who is a consultant, a speaker, a trainer, or just a writer in general, you want to be able to come from a place of being able to take all those years of actual work in the field and turning it into something that works for an audience. And so your magazine writing, in essence, becomes like a research lab, if that makes sense. A research lab as far as you discovering what it is that people are actually reacting to when you put things out there. So your book doesn't have to become this outline that you feel forced to be able to write. It's actually, your book will then come from not just your lived experience, your professional experience, but also your experience of communicating what it is that you do to people, with people. It comes from being able to really listen to what it is, the feedback that you're getting about what it is that you're writing about. Are there particular shifts in how it is that you speak to one audience? Your therapy sessions may work well for, I don't know, let's just say professional women of color over 40. And maybe you need to do a shift when working with Gen Z people who are maybe a little bit, I don't, how old is Gen Z? Maybe in their 20s at the oldest. And so being able to listen to what it is and taking that feedback from magazine articles will actually help you in your book writing process. And that's really why I teach the two. I like to be able to teach people how to be able to write the magazine articles as a runway to getting to the book. Now, everybody doesn't need to write magazine articles first before they actually get to the book. But if you just want to be able to start writing, then magazine articles is really a great way to be able to get started, as opposed to starting with journaling if you're doing professional writing. So yeah. Ooh, child, that was a lot. That was about 40 minutes. And so this is why I really teach magazine writing, why I really love to be able to teach magazine writing. If you are still here, I have an event coming up or an online event coming up February 22nd. I have an 8-week pitching magazine group that I am forming. I have a couple of people who have already signed up. I know we're still in January, but it's good to be able to know that you've invested in something that's going to pay off for you for years to come in your career, in your research career, in your process of writing books that actually add income and authority to what it is that you are creating. So go to the link in the description box. That's where I want you to go. Go to the link in the description box. It's a Linktree link, and you're going to find two things there. One is 5 successful magazine pitches. This is a freebie. I give this away to everybody who's interested. 5 successful magazine pitches for people who want to be able to get a feel for the difference between what it looks like to pitch an article, and then I offer a link to the actual published version of the magazine article. So you'll have that. Second, I have a link where you can actually invest in the course. It's on February 22nd. I'm looking to have at least 10 people in this group, and I'm keeping it as a small group because it's not just a bunch of people getting together. I'm actually reading the pitches that you are creating before you actually start to send them out. And so we meet once a week. The group meets on Sundays for an hour and a half at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Again, this is an online opportunity, so you can join us from anywhere you are on the planet. I myself am in Mexico. And we're learning together. The point of the group is for people to be able to learn from one another how to improve their pitching process. Once you get this process, you can go on and pitch magazine articles for as long as you'd like to continue to do so in your career. And you can always use that to be able to test ideas, to be able to help people, to help you think about how it is that you are translating your experience to those who are interested in investing in your expertise. So those things are all available in the link. So again, my name is Halana Black. I am a nonfiction author coach. I also support accomplished women in learning how to write and pitch magazine articles so that they can refine their message before they actually write the book. Go to the link, click like, click subscribe, share this video with another writer who needs this information, someone who takes their career seriously, someone who is really interested in getting in front of audiences who are actually ready to invest in what it is that you have to offer. And say hello in the comments. Tell me where in the world you are. I tend to have a lot of other women who are entrepreneurs in some way, shape, or form. Women who are entrepreneurs who want to become writers, or women who are writers in some way, shape, or form, and would love to be able to add magazine article writing and book writing to what it is that they're already doing. I would love to be able to hear from you. Say hello, tell me where you are in the world. Thank you. Peace. Good night.